And I'm just going to basically break it down into two factors here. There's the stud factor, and then there's the rookie season production. Right here. During the offseason, what it's going to be is basically players around the same ADP. Maybe they're on the same team. Maybe they're in the same position group. And you are going to be having to stare down that decision, Johnny, on draft day. Who do you draft? Today's episode is going to include Chase Claypool versus Diontae Johnson. We've looked at ADP, we've looked at situations, and we've dived deep into the numbers, and we want to help you decide who you can get in your draft to help you dominate your draft. Johnny, we're going to talk the Chase Claypool versus Diontae Johnson face-off, which is that Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiving core. And we had that coin flip previously recorded as well. Let's take a look.
All right,
another face-off, another coin flip. Let's check it out, Johnny. Our next two players we're going at it are Chase Claypool, Diontae Johnson, both from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to call heads for Diontae Johnson. Let's get that tail flip going, baby.
All right.
Tails it is. I'm getting Chase Claypool. You're getting Diontae Johnson. We're going to dice it up right here. Check it out. All right, so initially, this is probably another one that's going to be fun to watch because I don't think Johnny necessarily wanted Diontae in this back-to-back, but he has been a previous fan of Diontae, so I'll be interested to see his take. But I'm going to go first here as Johnny went first last time, and I'm just going to basically break it down into two factors here. There's the stud factor, and then there's the rookie season production, and then we'll try to project what Chase Claypool could be. So right now, Chase Claypool is going off at 6'12" in average draft position. He is the wide receiver 29 in most leagues coming off the board. The stud factor, that's what I like to talk about first. This guy has been compared to Brandon Marshall via Player Profiler. He's 6'4", 238 pounds. He runs a 4.40. If you look at a stat that J.J. Zacharyson brought up earlier this summer, if you look at since the late 90s, only Randy Moss, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, OBJ, Mike Williams, and Chase Claypool have had double-digit touchdowns in their rookie season. That is great company to be a part of, and it really lets you know that he is a guy that has that stud alpha ability within him. So let's look at what he was able to do last year, Johnny. 31 deep ball targets. That ranked him third among wide receivers. He finished as the wide receiver 16 in standard and wide receiver 24 in PPR, buoyed by those touchdowns as we mentioned above. 109 targets. That was 25th at the position, and similar to guys like Adam Thielen and Mike Evans. He had 9 touchdowns, which was tied for 8th among wide receivers, receiving touchdowns, that is. He was, and we talked about the third in deep ball targets, 9th in air yards with over 1,400, 4th in unrealized air yards with 921. I listed all these beautiful things that he's put to his game last year, and he did all of this while averaging 59% snap share on a per-game basis. That is ridiculous, including seeing only above 70% snap share from Week 10 only one time. So, I think there was news coming out that Tomlin said he was afraid of a rookie wall with Claypool, so he actually limited his snaps. He was afraid of a rookie wall so much he created a rookie wall for Chase Claypool and basically took him off the field. But yet, nonetheless, Chase Claypool was a top 15 standard, or almost a top 15 standard wide receiver and a top 25 PPR wide receiver. So if we're going to buy into, like Johnny's going to probably talk about, Big Ben hopefully having a better season this year, and that's going to affect Diontae, I'd rather wait a couple spots, draft Claypool, whose ADP is even nicer, and we're going to be buying him at his floor here at wide receiver 29 with all the alpha upside in the world for Chase Claypool, who I think can easily increase his targets as he increases his snap percentage. And imagine how many more times that Ben can get frustrated with Diontae without going to his big-bodied guy in Chase Claypool. I don't think it's going to last very long. I think Claypool has breakout alpha written all over him, and I'm snatching him up at that ADP.
I like the argument, Travis, and I am a fan of Chase Claypool. However, I have a great argument, and I'm also starting to come around a little bit more on Diontae because his ADP has dropped just a little bit because there is that uncertainty as to, who's really going to be the alpha there? Where are these targets going? Breakdown because of Juju coming back and whatnot. But here's what I'll say about Diontae that I absolutely love. And I do think he is still an underrated wide receiver. People don't realize just how good he is because he had all those drops, and that's all anyone wanted to talk about But that's not all I want to talk about, nor do I want to even bring it up, because we all know that story. We all know what that narrative is. But here's the truth. Even despite all that, Diontae Johnson finished as a wide receiver 21 last season. He averaged 14.9 PPR points per game. He was being drafted where he finished last year. So in my eyes, that's the absolute floor, because he just had a handful of drops that he seemed to correct over that second part of that season. If you look at what each game brought, he saw double-digit targets in a whopping 10 out of 15 games, Travis. If you took out the 2 games of the remaining 5 games where he didn't get double-digit targets, 2 of those games he left in the first half due to injury or the coach benching him, right? Everyone saw it on that, I believe it was a Sunday night or a Monday night game where he was sitting on the sidelines because he had 2 or 3 drops in that game. But if you take out those 2 games, which I don't generally like making these kinds of arguments, but, taking out because they actually did play in the game. But, if you take out the games in which he just had 9% of the snaps and 24% of the snaps due to injury and due to the drops, that points per game average jumps all the way up to 16.9. So for context, Travis, that's just as much as wide receiver 10 Justin Jefferson on average. And then this is the 2 points that I want to prove at just how good Diontae is, because some people might still be questioning, is he a good wide receiver? And he's not only a good wide receiver, he is an amazing wide receiver that's straight up going under the radar. There were 3 wide receivers with a 20% hog rate last year. So what is a hog rate? They're targets per snap. And what that means is, so targets per snap with a snap share over 60% is the cutoff. You take those in account. There are only 3 of them. Diontae Johnson was one of them. Antonio Brown was the other. And then one of our favorite wide receivers in the NFL, Davante Adams, was the third. That's pretty great company. And then you talk about the 2020 wide receivers that led in targets per route ran. Davante Adams was number 1. Braxton Berrios,
everybody knew,
everyone's favorite sleeper right there, Braxton Berrios. Third was Antonio Brown. His name comes up again. Keenan Allen, another great name on this list. And then coming in at number 5, tied actually with Keenan Allen on a points or targets per route ran at 0.27, was Diontae Johnson, who also is tied with another guy who's being drafted as a top 5 wide receiver, and that's Stephon Diggs. So all the analytics are going to show you that he is a really good wide receiver that you're going to be able to get in the 5th round, at the end of the 5th round, most likely, because not everyone still believes in Diontae. And so for me, I think it's an absolute steal where you're getting him, because like we said, you're drafting him at his floor when his ceiling could be top 10 wide receiver. And then the last thing I want to wrap it up with is I do like Chase a lot. And I give credit to Travis for a great breakdown of Chase Claypool. But here's my one major concern. We have talked about Big Ben coming into the season and being better off, right? Feeling healthier. He said he didn't throw, a million balls over the offseason. He just threw a couple to his son, and that was basically it. So his arm feels a lot more alive. Here's my problem with going with Chase Claypool on more oftentimes than not. Chase Claypool will be the down the field guy. He'll be the field stretcher. They will use him in motion, so he'll get those kinds of that kind of work. However, what we do know is, of all things that are safe, Diontae runs the shallower routes, the closer to the line of scrimmage routes. And so of all those things that are going to be safe for Big Ben to still get the ball to, it's going to be those quick slants. It's going to be those comebacks. It's going to be the 7-yard passes in which he could still get the ball to Diontae. So for me, I am coming around on Diontae. I do think he's a tremendous value. I think if you draft him as your wide receiver 2, there's a very good possibility you'll end up with 2 top 12 wide receivers, top 14 wide receivers at the end of this year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Diontae is we know targets are earned, and we know that Diontae has earned targets, and he had great targets last year. And I want to be in on the Diontae hype because, like you said, the metrics are there, the targets are there. There's obviously a world where both of these guys are going to be successful. But for the sake of this face-off, I'm going to skip Diontae pick another guy and get Chase Claypool, because look, I'm not exactly going for safety here with Claypool. I'm going for one of the few guys in NFL history that scored double-digit touchdowns and looks like a beast alpha wide receiver that is going to maybe step into his own. We talk about all these ways that Diontae Johnson was gobbling up targets last year, even with Chase Claypool in the lineup. Once again, Chase Claypool averaging 59% snap share. I think those numbers go up, and therefore Diontae shaves a little bit off of his target share, and that funnels towards a Chase Claypool who they decide to use even more in this offense and frequent even more. And then if we're talking about this offense does go, very conservative and they start to pass less and they start to run more with their new draft pick in Najee Harris, actually think that benefits the big playability of Chase Claypool a little bit more, because they're going to take shots at the defense with play action and things of that nature. So I do think there's outs to Claypool and Diontae here. For me, I'm going to stick with Claypool though.
I'm going to stick with Diontae on this one. I do think Claypool is a good value. Definitely draft him on a few teams. But I think for the upside and the downside, the floor is higher. The floor is higher to me for Diontae, with the ceiling being relatively the same. Whereas Chase Claypool's floor is lower, but he might have just the slight edge on the upside, because you did talk about the touchdowns, which is a great point.
Right here.
Oh, you watched the whole video? That's impressive. But if you want to learn how to dominate your draft or win your league, why don't you head on over to thefantasywhispers.com and grab your draft kit today? Or you could click the link in the description below. And if you're still not sold, check out one of these videos.